Art a mural?
He's showing that, you know, he drew this picture, and then when he wanted to put it on the wall, he's showing the 3 different ways he can do it.
I think that's
Being
great.
one way. And you know, honestly,
Math skills.
you wouldn't think this, but the kids didn't know that. I mean,
How would they? They
yes,
didn't
that's
do it.
true. But I mean, it's so simple.
They don't even, when I get them in summer art camps, the idea of putting graphite on the back of a drawing, put it onto another surface, just blows them away.
I know, it didn't need to represent.
Oh, it's just
You
blows
better
them
not
away.
have any of my students questioning.
Well, now, every now and then there are a couple, but they're kind of going, why are we messing up our drawing? That's what you know.
Well, think of how few kids have ever seen anyone actually do a mural.
Right.
They don't have a.
Adults don't know how to do it.
Yeah. So,
And when you're writing your lesson, and honestly, we do have to make the interdisciplinary connections, that's always a perfect one for math, and it's pretty, and proportion.
Proportion.
7th grade.
so,
Excellent.
That's very good.
I teach grading with Art 1 kids too.
Oh,
because
yeah.
they go, you teach
You know how to enlarge that way.
I know. You teach it at all levels, and each time they learn it, it makes, hopefully, keep deeper rut in their
But they
brain.
may not have learned it in an earlier grade.
And you can't assume that they learned it.
And then the math part of,
transfer.
you know, this number is to this number, is X is to the, you know, blowing it up. I used it last night. I was blowing something up. I mean, I just, it is always the easiest one to do, just to figure out if you're blowing up, you know, something this big, how proportionally blowing it up.
Proportion.
Yeah.
You will write the lesson on that for us.
I do it, but I have to get the calculator, because sometimes I get this right, you know, burgers.
went through your objectives, what I wanted them to learn. Basically, materials, I had saved scraps and pieces and stuff, like pieces of metal. My kids got a trampoline, so I cut up the boxes the trampoline came in with the cardboard, stuff like that. And then I encouraged the kids to bring stuff only after I went over and I did the PowerPoint of Jimenez. And I talked about his life. I talked about how he died. That was intriguing to my children. I talked about the reason that he started doing art, that he came from a family of artists. We talked about the fact that he came from across the border. I mean, we talked about him, and they became very interested in him at that point. Then I showed them that short YouTube clip that I showed y'all about Jimenez. It's about 3 minutes long. But then what I did after that is one day I was on the iPad and I was searching just sculptures, and I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I came to this YouTube about Kane's Arcade, and I don't know if you guys have seen this before, but I showed this to my kids, and this is where they got really excited. Then we
That's that little child, isn't it?
and we compared and we contrasted Kane and Luis Jimenez.
Why don't you turn it so everybody can see it?
Anyway, that's just about the end of it. But I played that, well, we talked about Louise, and then I played the clip of Louise, and then I played that. And then I asked my kids to brainstorm how they were alike and how, you know, in what ways they were alike. And of course, like one class, the first thing that came out of their mouth was, well, they just used whatever they had. You know, and then the other classes, the first thing maybe was, you know, well, they're both Hispanic. Well, they used stuff their dad had. Well, they went to work with their dad. I mean, and they came up with all kinds of things, and then, you know, eventually they got around to the point that I wanted, is they used whatever they had. And so then I said, how can you use whatever you have? And you need to start thinking about this, and today you need to draw up a plan. And of course, when I got finished with the lesson that day, there was only like 5 minutes of class left. So I just had a little while to talk about it, and then the excitement has been like overwhelming among the kids. And that's all that the 6th grade wants to talk about right now. So they came in and they started working on it the first day. And so it'll be 2 days that they work on it, and then when they're done, I told them that they had to write an artistic statement about it. So that's kind of been the procedures for day 1 and day 2, and just, you know, some other things that you might want to do step by step. And then the assessment, basically, throughout the you know, the process, I'm going to watch and see if they're going to be able to make it balanced. They're going to be able to realize that they have to have a larger setting, and some of them have already gone through that on the bottom than they are on the top. Some of mine that are maybe slower learners and have stepped in. Of course, could they, you know, need more help? And then what makes it balance and whether or not they work well together. And I will say that I've paired, a lot of them I allowed them to pick their own groupings, but some of them I paired and I didn't know how it was going to go over. And just the fact they're talking about it together. So children that I didn't know if they would work well together have really worked really well together. And I think it's been good for,
Have they all brought stuff from home?
a lot of them have, Some of them haven't, but a lot of them have brought like whole sacks full. But I did send a note home to the parents, and so the parents are into it as well. And it went home in the Tuesday, Newsday folder. So they brought, I have a bunch of junk in my room.
So what did you ask for? What did you ask for? Did you ask for specific things, or did you
Just
say,
things
oh,
to make a rocket. And I told them the things that I would provide them. And they're making them out of different things. Like one of them made them out of cello cups. Of course, a lot of them were using Coke bottles. Then I had leftover scraps of metal foiling, and they're using that. And then some of them are making it actually out of cardboard. But I also told them, and Liz gave me this idea, that they had to make it in some type of environment. And why is that environment for their rocket? Because we are the Fang Rockets, and I told them it would be judged. But their artistic statement is going to have to be something about why the environment is this. And then, you know, I haven't put my teeth in yet, but
and this you could probably find something.
People are easier to, especially to go through the new one. They're way past.
Even if they're on all fours, they're kind of hard to stand in.
Well, I know, but the deal was, when we did those horses for the main event, you know, they gave us a two-dimensional thing. Half of them were done by a competition where you did a design, and then, you know, they chose the people from that. And there were some great designs. And then those artists, I talked to some of them that got chosen, and then they put on the horse. And you take this beautiful two-dimensional thing that's beautiful here, and put it on something, and they had all the musculature on those horses. And even mine, trying to make a star look like a star that went over a thing going like this, it was hard. It was really hard. I had to come up with some really creative.
And I think Jimenez was one of the first artists to use fiberglass as a medium. So a lot of his breaking into the field was resistant to that as an art form.
and I talked about that, but I talked about it after they watched the YouTube video, because he talks about how he was using blue collar to become an artist, and then so I told my kids about that, and then I also told them about the fact that he used the jet paint that they paint the jets with to paint his signs, and how the color came in. And I think that they were really intrigued by the blue collar aspect and the actual car, fiberglass, plane,
Paint.
spray paint.
Didn't Carlin Walk use fiberglass?
He has some health issue because of that.
So he had these forms that were like beautiful, really smooth. I mean, when he had his retrospective.
He had a
like
show
this
here.
big- Yeah, they're really smooth looking.
I don't know if it fits anywhere here, but Jesus Morales was his apprentice. When he first graduated from UNT, worked with him. And they're both Hispanic sculptors. His artwork is completely different. They were friends. I love that King's Arcade thing. To me, the best part of that thing is that boy's father, not just let him do it, he allowed it. He didn't say, no, that's just trash. Don't mess up my story.
Yeah, but that kid's little brain.
Well, and he has like a big, I think, over 100,000, 200,000 set up first projects for him now.
But it's so great that that artist found him, the filmmaker found him, and he publicized his
Because
story.
that's not a good part of LA.
Well, and I think that was maybe one of the things that got my kids so excited.
Oh, yeah.
If it can happen to him, it can happen to them.
That's right.
I think that's what the father.
It's a wonderful father.
He promoted this Charlie Brown.
I would have been promoting it, you did what? And where did that come from? My stars, just from going to an arcade and coming up with the tickets coming out and the computer on the side
That's
of
a
it.
smart kid.
Oh my gosh, I'd be going, okay, how can you be supporting your education? Inventor.
But they don't all get discovered, do they? They get encouraged from their parents.
What they don't have is time.
Parents.
I mean, they're at somewhere, this little boy had all this time, and he had to figure out what he was gonna do, and he had to make something of the stuff he had, and that's what my generation what my daughter's generation does.
And he said it was in the summertime, so he was going to work with his father, because they probably didn't have anybody to stay home with him.
He had boxes.
That's the resource.
Oh.
And he was cutting his own